Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The English Globe, where we help you improve your English while talking about important life topics. I'm Adam, your host today, and with me is my co-host, Julia. How are you doing today, Julia?
Hi, Adam. I'm doing great, thank you. Hello, listeners. We are excited to be here again with another helpful and interesting topic. How about you, Adam? How are you today?
I'm feeling good, Julia. Ready for today's conversation. And speaking of today's topic, it's one that everyone will face at some point in their life. We're talking about failure and setbacks. Whether you're learning English or facing any other challenge, knowing how to handle failure is really important.
Yes, Adam, that's right. Failure is something we all experience, but not everyone knows how to deal with it in a positive way. Today, we're going to help you understand what failure and setbacks are, and more importantly, how to overcome them. It's going to be a useful conversation, especially if you've ever felt frustrated or disappointed after a failure.
Exactly, Julia. So, let's start with a simple question. What is failure? In simple terms, failure is when we don't succeed at something we tried to do. It could be not passing an exam, not getting a job you wanted, or even something small like not completing a task on time. Failure happens when things don't go the way we planned.
That's a great way to put it, Adam. And a setback is a little different. A setback is when something unexpected happens that slows us down or makes things harder. For example, if you're studying English and your internet stops working, that's a setback. It's not a complete failure, but it makes things more difficult for a while.
Right, Julia. Both failure and setbacks can feel very disappointing, but they don't have to stop us from reaching our goals. In fact, learning how to deal with these challenges can help us grow stronger. So, today we're going to explore why handling failure is so important for personal and professional growth.
Exactly, Adam. When we learn how to handle failure, we don't just get better at the thing we're trying to do, like learning English. We also become stronger, more patient, and more determined. Whether you're working on a new skill, preparing for a job interview, or facing any life challenge, knowing how to deal with failure will help you keep going.
Yes, Julia. That's why today's topic is crucial. No one becomes successful without facing failure at some point. It's how we handle those moments that really matters. And we want to help our listeners, especially English learners, understand that failure is not the end. It's just part of the journey.
Exactly, Adam. Failure doesn't mean you can't succeed. It just means you're learning. And setbacks are temporary. They might slow you down, but they don't stop you. We're going to give you some simple strategies and tips for dealing with both failure and setbacks today.
And Julia, I think it's also important to remind our listeners that feeling bad after a failure is completely normal. It's okay to feel sad or frustrated when things don't go well. What's important is what we do next, after those feelings pass. That's what we're going to focus on in today's podcast.
Yes, Adam. It's all about what happens next. So, to all our listeners, don't worry if you've failed at something before. Today, we'll give you the tools to pick yourself back up and keep moving forward. Whether it's a small setback in your English learning journey or something bigger in your personal or professional life, we've got you covered.
That's right, Julia. So, if you've ever felt like giving up because of a failure or setback, stay with us. We're going to dive deep into why failure happens, how to deal with the emotions that come with it, and how to turn failure into success. It's going to be a really important conversation.
And we're here to make sure that no matter what challenges you face, you have the tools to keep going. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's start talking about how to deal with failure and setbacks.
Yes, let's get started. We'll be right back after a short break, and then we'll dive into understanding failure and how it affects us emotionally. All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's now take a closer look at what failure really is. I think it's important to start by saying that failure is something we all experience in life, no matter who we are or what we do. But what exactly is failure? Well, failure happens when we try to achieve something, but things don't turn out the way we planned. For example, imagine you're preparing for an exam. You've studied, you feel confident, but when the exam results come back, you find out that you didn't pass. That's a form of failure. Another example could be applying for a job you really want. You prepare your resume, you go for the interview, but then you find out you didn't get the job. In both cases, you didn't reach your goal, and that's what failure looks like. It's when we have a goal or an outcome in mind, but we don't succeed in reaching it.
That's right, Adam. Failure can happen in many areas of life. It's not just limited to big things like exams or job interviews. It can also happen in small everyday situations. For example, you might set a goal to wake up early every day to study or exercise, but maybe you only manage to do it for 1 or 2 days before you start missing your goal. That could feel like a failure too, even though it's a smaller example. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand that failure is a natural part of life. No one is perfect, and no one succeeds all the time. In fact, failure is often a sign that we are trying something new or challenging, which is a good thing. If we never fail, it probably means we aren't pushing ourselves or learning anything new.
Exactly, Julia. Failure is part of the process of learning and growing. It's something that we all go through, no matter how successful we are or how experienced we become. And when we fail, it doesn't mean that we are not capable or that we will never succeed. It just means that something didn't go the way we expected, and now we have the chance to learn from it. So, what are some common reasons why failure happens? Well, one of the most common reasons is lack of preparation. For example, if you're preparing for an exam, but you don't study enough or you don't review the right materials, you might not pass the exam because you weren't fully prepared. Preparation is key in many situations, and when we don't prepare properly, it can lead to failure.
That's a really good point, Adam. Preparation is so important, whether it's for an exam, a job interview, or even something as simple as giving a presentation in class or at work. But even when we do prepare, sometimes things can still go wrong, and that's because another reason for failure is mistakes. We are all human, and we all make mistakes from time to time. Maybe during an exam, you misread a question and give the wrong answer. Or during a job interview, you forget to mention something important about your skills or experience. These are mistakes that can lead to failure, but they don't mean you're not capable. They just mean that you made an error in the moment, and that's something you can correct in the future.
Yes, Julia. And that leads us to another common reason for failure: unexpected events. Sometimes, no matter how well prepared we are, things happen that are completely out of our control. For example, you might be on your way to an important meeting or exam, but then your car breaks down or there's a sudden power outage. These unexpected events can cause you to fail, even if you were fully prepared and ready to succeed. It's frustrating when things like that happen, but it's a reminder that failure isn't always our fault. Sometimes, life just throws obstacles in our way, and we have to deal with them as best we can.
Yes, Adam, life is full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises come at the worst possible time. It's important to remember that not every failure is a result of something we did wrong. Sometimes, failure happens because of things that we couldn't have predicted or controlled. And while that can be frustrating, it's also an opportunity to develop patience and resilience. Instead of getting upset when unexpected events cause failure, we can learn to adapt and find new solutions. In many cases, failure isn't the end of the road. It's just a detour that takes us in a different direction. one that might lead to even greater success in the future.
I couldn't agree more, Julia. Failure often teaches us more than success ever could. When we succeed, we feel good, but we don't always stop to think about why we succeeded. But when we fail, we're forced to reflect on what went wrong, and that's where the real learning happens. Whether it's because of lack of preparation, mistakes, or unexpected events, failure gives us the chance to learn, to grow, and to become better. So, the next time you experience failure, remember that it's not the end. It's a step in the right direction, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time.
Exactly, Adam. And I think it's really important for our listeners to remember that failure is not a reflection of their abilities or their potential. Just because you fail at something doesn't mean you're not capable of achieving your goals. In fact, some of the most successful people in the world have experienced failure many times before they finally succeeded. The key is to keep going, to keep learning, and to never let failure stop you from reaching your goals.
That's a great point, Julia. Failure is a part of the journey to success, and everyone experiences it at some point in their lives. What matters most is how we respond to it. Do we give up, or do we keep pushing forward? That's the real question. And with the right mindset, we can use failure as a stepping stone to something even greater. We'll talk more about how to handle failure and setbacks in the next section, but for now, just remember that failure is not the end. It's just the beginning of a new opportunity to learn and grow. All right, let's dive into something that I think everyone can relate to when it comes to failure: the emotions that come with it. When we fail at something, it's not just about the fact that we didn't reach our goal. It's also about how that failure makes us feel inside. And let me tell you, failure can bring out some strong emotions. I think the first feeling most people experience when they fail is sadness. You feel sad because you put in effort, you tried hard, and things didn't go the way you hoped. It's like a heavy weight in your chest, and that sadness can sometimes make you feel like giving up. Another common feeling is disappointment. You set your expectations high, you were confident that you could achieve something, but when it doesn't happen, it's like all your hopes come crashing down. And let's not forget about frustration. Failing at something, especially if you've tried more than once, can be incredibly frustrating. You start asking yourself, why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? Those feelings can be overwhelming at times.
Oh yes, Adam. I can definitely relate to that. I remember a time when I failed, and it had a huge emotional impact on me. It was a few years ago when I was applying for a job that I really wanted. I spent weeks preparing my resume, writing cover letters, and practicing for the interview. I was sure I was going to get the job because I had worked so hard, but when I didn't get it, I was crushed. I felt so disappointed, not just in the situation, but also in myself. I started thinking, maybe I'm not good enough for this job. Maybe I'll never succeed. The sadness was overwhelming, and I felt frustrated because I couldn't understand why I wasn't chosen. I remember feeling embarrassed too, because I had told my friends and family that I was applying for this job, and now I had to tell them that I didn't get it. It wasn't easy to deal with those emotions, and I think a lot of people feel the same way when they fail at something that really matters to them.
Thank you for sharing that, Julia. I think it's really important to hear personal stories like yours because it helps remind us that everyone goes through failure, and it's not just us. You mentioned feeling embarrassed, and I think that's another big emotion that comes with failure. When we don't succeed, we often feel like we've let other people down, or we worry that they'll judge us for not reaching our goal. That embarrassment can make it hard to talk about failure, but the truth is, most people have experienced something similar. We're not alone in feeling this way. And while those feelings of sadness, disappointment, frustration, and embarrassment are difficult, they're also completely normal. It's okay to feel upset when things don't go the way you planned.
Absolutely, Adam. It's completely natural to feel bad when you fail at something, and I think it's really important to acknowledge those feelings. Sometimes when we fail, we try to hide our emotions or pretend that we're okay, even when we're not. But I believe it's better to accept those feelings and give ourselves time to process them. It's okay to feel sad, it's okay to be disappointed, and it's okay to feel frustrated. These emotions don't make us weak, they make us human. I know that when I didn't get that job, I had to give myself some time to feel sad about it. I allowed myself to be upset, and I think that's what helped me move on from the failure. If I had ignored those feelings, they would have just built up inside of me and made me feel worse.
That's such a good point, Julia. When we fail, it's easy to think that we should just get over it quickly and move on. But in reality, those feelings of sadness and disappointment are a natural part of the process. It's important to give ourselves permission to feel those emotions, because trying to push them away can actually make things worse in the long run. Failure can hurt, and there's no need to pretend that it doesn't. But here's the thing. While it's important to acknowledge those emotions, it's also important to remember that those feelings don't last forever. Yes, you might feel sad or frustrated right after you fail, but as time goes on, those emotions will start to fade. And eventually, you'll be able to look at the situation more clearly and learn from it.
Exactly, Adam. That's something I really want our listeners to take away from this conversation. It's okay to feel bad after a failure, but those feelings aren't permanent. They might feel overwhelming in the moment, but they will pass. I know that when I didn't get that job, I was really upset at first, but after a few days, I started to feel a little better. I realized that not getting the job wasn't the end of the world. In fact, it gave me the chance to apply for other jobs that were a better fit for me. And over time, the disappointment I felt turned into motivation. I learned from the experience and used it to improve myself. So while failure can feel devastating at first, it's important to remember that it's just a temporary setback, and it doesn't define your future.
That's such an important message, Julia. The emotions we feel after failure are real, and they can be intense, but they don't last forever. It's like going through a storm. When you're in the middle of it, it feels like it will never end. But eventually, the clouds clear and the sun comes out again. And when that happens, you're often stronger than you were before. I think it's also important to mention that everyone's emotional reaction to failure is different. Some people might feel sad for a day, while others might feel disappointed for a week or more. The key is to allow yourself to feel those emotions, but not to let them take over your life. It's about finding a balance, acknowledging your feelings, but also knowing when it's time to start moving forward.
Yes, Adam. Everyone reacts to failure in their own way, and there's no right or wrong way to feel after a setback. Some people might need more time to process their emotions, while others might be ready to move on more quickly. And that's okay. What's important is that we don't let those emotions hold us back. It's easy to get stuck in a cycle of negative thinking after a failure, especially when we start to doubt ourselves or think that we'll never succeed. But that's just the emotion talking. It's not the truth. Failure is a part of life, and it's something that we all experience. The key is to remember that it's just one moment in time, not the end of your story.
Well said, Julia. Failure is just one chapter in a much bigger book, and the way we handle the emotions that come with it can make all the difference in how the rest of the story plays out. So, to our listeners, remember this. It's okay to feel sad, disappointed, frustrated, or even embarrassed when you fail. Those feelings are normal, and they're part of the healing process. But don't let them stop you from moving forward. Take the time you need to process your emotions, but always keep in mind that failure is not the end. It's just a stepping stone on your journey to success. We'll talk more about how to bounce back from failure and turn setbacks into opportunities in the next section. But for now, remember that it's okay to feel, and it's okay to fail. Now that we've talked about the emotional impact of failure, let's shift our focus to something really important: learning from failure. One of the most valuable things about experiencing failure is that it can teach us important lessons that we might not learn otherwise. When we fail at something, it's a moment to pause and reflect on what went wrong. This reflection is crucial because it helps us understand our mistakes, which is the first step towards improvement. For example, if a student fails an exam, it's not just about the bad grade. It's a chance to think about why they didn't do well. Did they not study enough? Did they misunderstand the material? Understanding these reasons can help them prepare better for the next exam.
Exactly, Adam. And it's not just about academics. This applies to all areas of life. When we fail at a job interview or a project at work, we can take that experience and analyze it. Maybe we weren't fully prepared, or perhaps we didn't communicate our ideas clearly. By identifying what went wrong, we can work on those areas and improve for the future. Each failure can act as a guide, showing us what we need to do differently next time. And here's the interesting part. Learning from failure can actually make us stronger. When we face challenges and learn to overcome them, we build resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, and this skill becomes invaluable as we move forward in our lives.
That's a fantastic point, Julia. Each time we face failure, we have the opportunity to grow and develop as individuals. When we learn from our mistakes, we become better prepared for the future. Think about it. If you failed at something once, you're less likely to make the same mistake again. You start to develop strategies to handle similar situations more effectively. This is what makes us stronger. We might not see it immediately, but every time we pick ourselves up after a failure, we become more capable and confident in our abilities. In a way, failure becomes a stepping stone towards success.
Absolutely, Adam. This idea ties in perfectly with the concept of a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. It's about understanding that failure is not a reflection of our worth or intelligence. Instead, it's a part of the learning process. With a growth mindset, we view failure as an opportunity to learn rather than something to be feared. This mindset encourages us to try again and keep pushing forward no matter how many times we stumble.
That's a key takeaway for our listeners. Failure is not the end. It's merely a step forward on the path to success. When we embrace the idea that we can learn from our mistakes, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. For example, let's say someone starts a new hobby, like playing a musical instrument. They might struggle at first and feel frustrated when they can't play a song perfectly. But if they adopt a growth mindset, they'll understand that these early failures are part of the learning curve. Each mistake teaches them something new, and with practice, they will eventually improve.
Exactly. It's so important to remember that improvement takes time. Learning from our failures is a process, and it requires patience and persistence. When we fail, it's easy to feel discouraged and think, "I'll never get this right." But that's where the growth mindset comes in. Instead of dwelling on the failure, we can ask ourselves, what did I learn from this? How can I do better next time? By focusing on these questions, we shift our perspective from failure to growth.
And this brings us to another crucial aspect of learning from failure: the importance of trying again. When we experience setbacks, it's natural to feel hesitant about putting ourselves out there again. However, Each attempt is a chance to learn and grow. Take athletes, for example. They train hard, and sometimes they lose competitions or make mistakes during a game. But they don't give up. Instead, they analyze their performance, learn from their mistakes, and come back stronger. The same goes for all of us, no matter what area of life we're in.
Yes, each time we try again, we build our confidence and resilience. It's like a muscle that gets stronger with each workout. And remember, even the most successful people have faced failures. They've had to learn from their mistakes and keep pushing forward. For instance, famous inventors like Thomas Edison faced countless failures before achieving success. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This shows the importance of perseverance and learning from each experience, no matter how many times we might fail along the way.
That's an inspiring quote, Julia. It perfectly captures the essence of what we're talking about today. Failure doesn't have to be the end of the road. It can be a powerful teacher if we let it. The key is to approach failure with curiosity rather than fear. When we embrace our mistakes as opportunities for learning, we set ourselves up for future success. So, to our listeners, remember that failure is just a part of life. It's not something to be ashamed of, but rather something to learn from.
And if you ever find yourself feeling overwhelmed by failure, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself what you can learn from the experience. Each failure brings with it a lesson, and the more we learn, the more prepared we become for whatever challenges lie ahead. So let's embrace failure as a valuable part of our journey, knowing that every setback can lead to growth and new opportunities.
Well said, Julia. As we move on to the next section, let's remember that learning from failure is an essential skill that can benefit us in all areas of our lives. It's all about how we respond to setbacks and use those experiences to fuel our future successes. Now that we've explored the concept of learning from failure, let's move on to some practical steps that can help us deal with failure when it happens. It's crucial to have a plan in place to help us navigate these challenging moments in our lives. So, let's dive into these steps, starting with the first one, accepting failure.
Absolutely, Adam. Acceptance is the first and most important step in dealing with failure. When we experience a setback, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or even try to ignore it. However, ignoring failure doesn't make it go away. In fact, it can make things worse in the long run. Accepting that we have failed is a powerful act. It means we recognize what happened and take responsibility for it. This acceptance allows us to move forward rather than getting stuck in feelings of denial or shame. So instead of saying, "I can't believe this happened to me," we can say, "Okay, this happened. What can I learn from it?"
That's a great point, Julia. Acceptance sets the foundation for everything that comes next. Once we accept that we've failed, we can begin to reflect on what happened. This brings us to our second step, reflecting on the failure. This means taking a moment to think about why things didn't go as planned. It's important to ask ourselves questions like, "What went wrong?" or "What could I have done differently?" Reflecting allows us to gain insight into our actions and decisions. It's like being a detective trying to solve a mystery. We need to gather clues about what happened.
Exactly, Adam. Reflecting doesn't mean beating ourselves up over what went wrong. It's about understanding the situation clearly. For example, if you didn't get the job you wanted, ask yourself what factors contributed to that outcome. Did you prepare enough for the interview? Were there specific skills or experiences that you didn't highlight? By asking these questions, we can gain valuable insights that will help us in the future. This step is essential because without reflection, we might make the same mistakes again.
Right. Now let's move on to our third step, making a plan. After accepting our failure and reflecting on what happened, it's time to take action. A solid plan can guide us on how to improve and move forward. This might involve setting new goals or strategies. For instance, if you realize that you didn't study enough for an exam, your new plan could include creating a study schedule that allows for more time to prepare. Or, if you didn't perform well in a project at work, perhaps your plan could involve seeking out additional training or practicing your presentation skills. Having a clear plan gives us direction and helps us focus on what needs to be done to improve.
Absolutely. Making a plan gives us a sense of control over our situation. It transforms the feelings of helplessness that often accompany failure into proactive steps we can take to change the outcome next time. This also ties into our next step, which is to stay positive. Maintaining a positive attitude is crucial, especially when we're dealing with setbacks. It's easy to feel discouraged and think, "I will never succeed." However, having a positive mindset allows us to keep moving forward. We should remind ourselves that everyone experiences failure, and it does not define who we are as individuals. Instead of seeing failure as a reflection of our worth, we can view it as a temporary setback on our journey.
That's so important. Staying positive can change our perspective. It helps us build resilience and encourages us to keep trying. We can use positive affirmations or surround ourselves with supportive friends and family who remind us that failure is a normal part of life. And speaking of support, that brings us to our final step: seeking support. When we're feeling down after a failure, it's essential to reach out to others. Talking to friends, family members, or mentors can provide us with valuable advice and encouragement. They can offer a different perspective on our situation and remind us that we're not alone in facing challenges.
Absolutely. Seeking support can also help us process our feelings and gain insights that we might not have considered on our own. When we share our experiences with others, it can lighten the emotional load. For example, if you've faced a setback in your career, speaking with a mentor who has experienced similar challenges can be incredibly beneficial. They may have valuable insights or strategies to share, helping you navigate your situation more effectively.
Exactly. It's essential to remember that reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that we are willing to learn and grow from our experiences. So, to recap these practical steps: first, we accept failure. Second, we reflect on what happened. Third, we make a plan to improve. Fourth, we stay positive and maintain a growth mindset. Finally, we seek support from those around us. Each of these steps is vital in helping us deal with failure and turn it into an opportunity for growth.
Yes. Embracing these steps will not only help us deal with failure more effectively, but also empower us to face future challenges with confidence. Remember, failure is not the end. It's simply a part of the journey towards success.
Well said, Julia. As we continue our discussion, let's keep these practical steps in mind, knowing that we can always learn and grow from our experiences, no matter how difficult they may seem at the time. Now that we've discussed practical steps for dealing with failure, let's dive into some real-life examples that illustrate how failure can lead to success. These stories remind us that everyone, even the most successful people, faces setbacks.
That's right, Adam. Let's start with some famous individuals who experienced significant failures before achieving their dreams. One of the most well-known examples is Albert Einstein. When he was a child, his teachers thought he was slow and not very intelligent. They even said he wouldn't amount to much in life. But despite these negative assessments, Einstein never gave up. He pursued his passion for physics, and through hard work and determination, He went on to become one of the greatest scientists in history, developing the theory of relativity and changing the way we understand the universe. This shows us that what others perceive as failure or lack of ability doesn't define our true potential.
Absolutely. Einstein's story is a powerful reminder that failure often precedes great success. Another incredible example is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before Rowling became a world-renowned author, she faced numerous rejections from publishers. She was a single mother living on welfare, and at one point, she even thought about giving up on her writing dreams. However, she continued to believe in her story and her talent. Finally, a small publisher decided to take a chance on her book, and the rest is history. The Harry Potter series became a global phenomenon, inspiring millions of readers. Rowling's journey teaches us that perseverance is key, and we should never let failure deter us from pursuing our passions.
Exactly, Adam. Both of these stories emphasize the importance of resilience and determination in the face of failure. It's not just about falling down, it's about getting back up and trying again. These examples remind us that failure can be a stepping stone to achieving our goals. Now let's move on to some examples from our everyday lives, which can also be very relatable for our listeners.
Definitely. Many people face challenges when trying to learn something new, like a language. For instance, imagine someone trying to learn English. At first, they might struggle with pronunciation or grammar. They could feel embarrassed when making mistakes or fear they'll never get it right. However, if they embrace those mistakes and view them as learning opportunities, they can improve over time. Each time they practice, they become more confident and skilled. Eventually, they will be able to communicate effectively in English, showing that early failures are often part of the learning process.
That's a perfect example, Adam. Learning a new language can be daunting, but every mistake is a chance to grow. I also remember when I started a new job. I was so excited, but quickly realized I was struggling with some tasks. At first, I felt like I wasn't good enough and worried I might fail. However, I took a step back, reflected on what went wrong, and asked my colleagues for help. With their support and my determination to improve, I gradually became more confident in my role. This experience taught me that asking for help and learning from failure is a valuable part of personal and professional growth.
That's a great personal story, Julia. It highlights how seeking support can make a huge difference when dealing with setbacks. It's essential for our listeners to remember that everyone encounters challenges, and sharing our experiences with others can be incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. We would love to hear from our listeners as well. If you have stories about how you overcame failure, feel free to share them with us. Hearing about real-life experiences can inspire others and remind them that they are not alone in facing challenges.
And don't forget, these stories don't have to be about famous figures or major life events. Even small, everyday victories matter. Whether it's learning to cook a new recipe, trying out a new hobby, or facing a difficult situation at work, every effort counts. Remember, the journey of growth is filled with ups and downs, and that's completely normal.
Exactly. It's important to celebrate the small successes along the way as they contribute to our overall growth. In summary, whether it's through the stories of famous individuals or our personal experiences, we can see that failure is often just a stepping stone on the path to success.
Right. So as we continue our podcast, let's keep in mind that failure is not the end, but an opportunity to learn, grow, and ultimately succeed. We've talked a lot about dealing with failure, and now we're going to focus on two key qualities that are essential for overcoming setbacks: persistence and patience. These qualities can help us keep moving forward even when things get tough.
That's right, Adam. Let's start with persistence. Persistence means continuing to try, even when we face difficulties or failures. It's like when someone is learning English. At first, it can be very challenging. You might struggle with pronunciation, grammar, or vocabulary. You might feel frustrated and want to give up. However, if you keep practicing, speaking, and making mistakes, you will gradually improve.
Absolutely. For instance, think about a student who is trying to speak English fluently. They might find it hard to form sentences or remember new words, but if they practice every day, even when it's difficult, they will get better over time. This is the power of persistence. Every time they try, they are one step closer to achieving their goal.
Exactly, Adam. Persistence helps us push through the tough times. It's like climbing a mountain. The climb can be steep and hard, but with each step, you get closer to the top. And when you finally reach the peak, the view is worth all the effort.
What a great metaphor, Julia. Now let's talk about patience. Patience is also very important when we face setbacks. Sometimes we want to see results quickly. We may expect that if we practice for a few days, we should be perfect. But that's not how learning works. It takes time to develop new skills.
Absolutely. For example, if you're trying to learn how to play an instrument, you won't be a master overnight. You have to practice regularly, and you may not sound great at first. But with time and patience, your skills will improve. The same goes for learning a language.
Exactly. Patience allows us to stay calm and continue working toward our goals, even when we don't see immediate progress. It's like planting a seed. You don't expect to see a big tree the next day. You water the seed, give it sunlight, and wait. After some time, you'll see it grow.
What a wonderful way to put it, Adam. So how can our listeners practice persistence and patience in their own lives? One way is to set small, achievable goals. If you're learning English, for example, try to learn 5 new words each week. Celebrate when you reach that goal.
That's a great tip, Julia. Small victories can motivate us to keep going. Also, it's important to remind ourselves that it's okay to fail. Everyone fails at some point. What matters is how we respond to that failure. When we persist and are patient, we build resilience.
Yes, resilience helps us bounce back from challenges. It's like a rubber band. When you stretch it, it may seem like it's losing its shape, but it can return to its original form. When we practice persistence and patience, we become stronger and better able to handle future challenges.
So true, Julia. Let's also encourage our listeners to seek support from friends and family. Sharing your goals and challenges with others can help you stay motivated and remind you that you are not alone in your journey.
Absolutely. Connecting with others who understand your struggles can be very encouraging. They can help you stay patient and persistent when times get tough. Remember, it's perfectly normal to face difficulties, and having a support system can make a big difference.
As we wrap up this section, let's remind our listeners that persistence and patience are essential tools in dealing with failure. Keep trying, stay patient, and believe in your ability to overcome setbacks.
Great summary, Adam. Everyone's journey is unique, and with persistence and patience, you can turn your failures into valuable lessons that lead to success.
In this section of our podcast, we're going to explore the topic of overcoming setbacks. Now, before we dive into how to handle setbacks, it's important to understand the difference between a setback and a failure. A setback can be seen as a temporary problem or an obstacle that hinders your progress, while failure often feels much more significant. Failure might mean not achieving a goal you worked hard for, while a setback is like hitting a bump in the road that delays your journey. but doesn't necessarily mean you won't reach your destination.
That's a great distinction, Adam. Setbacks can happen to anyone at any time, and they can be caused by various factors, such as unexpected challenges, changes in circumstances, or even personal issues that come up. For instance, if someone is studying for an important English exam and suddenly falls ill, that's a setback. They might miss some study time, which can be frustrating, but it doesn't mean they can't still pass the exam. It's essential to recognize that setbacks are a natural part of life and that everyone experiences them.
Exactly, Julia. Setbacks can feel discouraging, but they don't define our ability to succeed. It's important to remain focused on our goals even when we encounter obstacles. One effective way to handle setbacks is to stay focused on the goal. When we keep our eyes on what we want to achieve, it can motivate us to push through the challenges we face. For example, if our goal is to improve our English speaking skills, we shouldn't let a temporary setback, like a missed opportunity to practice, make us feel like we've failed. Instead, we can remind ourselves of our overall objective and the progress we've made so far.
Absolutely, Adam. Staying focused helps us maintain a positive mindset, which is crucial during challenging times. Additionally, it's helpful to take small steps. When faced with a setback, it can be overwhelming to think about everything we need to do to get back on track. Instead of trying to tackle everything at once, we can break our goals into smaller, manageable tasks. For instance, if someone is trying to prepare for an English test but feels overwhelmed after a setback, they could focus on studying just one topic or practicing a few vocabulary words each day.
That's an excellent point, Julia. Taking small steps makes the process less daunting and allows us to build momentum. Every small achievement counts, and celebrating these victories can keep our motivation high. Furthermore, another effective strategy is to stay flexible. Life is full of surprises, and sometimes our plans need to change. If we can adapt to new situations and find alternative paths to our goals, we can overcome setbacks more easily.
Exactly. Being flexible means being open to adjusting our plans when things don't go as expected. For example, if someone has planned to attend a language class but is unable to due to a scheduling conflict, they might look for online resources or find a language exchange partner to practice with instead. This adaptability can help us stay engaged and motivated even when faced with unexpected challenges.
In addition to flexibility, it's important to practice self-compassion during setbacks. We should be kind to ourselves and recognize that everyone faces challenges. Instead of being critical of ourselves, we should acknowledge our feelings and remind ourselves that it's okay to stumble. For example, if you miss a deadline or don't perform as well as you hoped, try to reflect on what you can learn from the experience rather than dwelling on negative feelings.
Absolutely, Adam. Self-compassion allows us to approach setbacks with a healthier mindset. It encourages us to view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than as failures. Lastly, I want to emphasize the importance of reaching out for support. When we face setbacks, talking to someone we trust, whether it's a friend, family member, or mentor, can provide us with encouragement and perspective. They can help us see things from a different angle, share their own experiences, and remind us that we are not alone in our struggles.
Very well said, Julia. Support from others can be incredibly valuable, and sometimes just having someone listen to us can make a world of difference. As we conclude this section, remember that setbacks are a part of life, but they don't have to derail our progress. By staying focused on our goals, taking small steps, being flexible, practicing self-compassion, and seeking support, we can overcome setbacks and continue our journey toward success.
Exactly, Adam. Setbacks are just temporary roadblocks on the path to achieving our dreams. Let's embrace them as opportunities to learn and grow, and remind ourselves that persistence and patience will guide us through.
As we move into this next section, let's talk about something incredibly important: motivation to keep going. Life can be challenging, and we all face difficult times when things don't go as planned. During these moments, it's essential to find motivation that will inspire us to keep pushing forward even when the road ahead seems tough.
Absolutely, Adam. One of the best ways to stay motivated is to remind ourselves of our goals and why we started in the first place. When we encounter failure or setbacks, it can be easy to lose sight of our objectives and feel discouraged. However, taking a moment to reflect on our passions and dreams can reignite our determination. Whether it's learning English, advancing in our careers, or pursuing a personal hobby, remembering the reasons behind our efforts can fuel our motivation.
That's a great point, Julia. Additionally, surrounding ourselves with positive influences can also be a powerful motivator. This might include inspiring friends, family members, or even motivational quotes that resonate with us. For example, reading about people who have overcome adversity can remind us that we too can rise above our challenges. If we look at stories of individuals who have faced significant obstacles, such as athletes, artists, or entrepreneurs, we see that persistence often leads to eventual success. These stories show us that setbacks are not the end. They are merely stepping stones on the path to achieving our dreams.
Exactly, Adam. It's also helpful to create a vision board or write down our goals. A vision board is a visual representation of what we want to achieve, and it can serve as a daily reminder of our aspirations. When we have a tangible representation of our goals, it becomes easier to stay focused and motivated. We can look at our vision board when we're feeling down and remind ourselves of what we're working toward. Writing down our goals can also help clarify our thoughts and make them feel more attainable.
That's a wonderful idea, Julia. In addition to that, maintaining a positive mindset is absolutely crucial when it comes to overcoming failure and setbacks. Our thoughts have a powerful influence on our emotions and actions. If we can train ourselves to think positively, even in tough situations, we can change our perspective and approach challenges with a more constructive attitude. For instance, instead of saying, "I failed," we can reframe our thoughts to, "I learned something valuable from this experience." This small change in mindset can make a significant difference in how we cope with setbacks.
Absolutely. Adopting a positive mindset doesn't mean ignoring our feelings or pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging our emotions and then choosing to focus on the possibilities ahead. Practicing gratitude is also a great way to cultivate positivity. By taking a moment each day to reflect on what we're thankful for, we shift our focus away from our difficulties and towards the good things in our lives. This shift in perspective can help us stay motivated and energized, even when we face challenges.
That's very true, Julia. And let's not forget the importance of celebrating small victories along the way. Each step we take toward our goals, no matter how small, is an achievement worth recognizing. Celebrating these milestones can boost our motivation and remind us that progress is being made. So, whether it's mastering a new English phrase, completing a project, or simply getting out of bed on a tough day, taking a moment to acknowledge our efforts can help us stay motivated to keep going.
Exactly, Adam. Motivation is a continuous process, and it's okay to have ups and downs along the way. What's important is that we find ways to keep that fire burning within us. Remember, it's okay to seek inspiration from others, but the most important motivation comes from within ourselves. By believing in our abilities and staying committed to our goals, we can navigate through any difficulties we face. As we wrap up this podcast, let's quickly summarize some of the key points we discussed today. First, we talked about the importance of accepting failure and recognizing that it's a normal part of life. We also emphasized how learning from our mistakes can help us grow and improve in the future. Additionally, we discussed the significance of maintaining a positive attitude and surrounding ourselves with supportive influences to help us through tough times.
Absolutely, Julia. Remember, failure is not a final destination. It's part of the journey toward success. Every time we face a setback, we have the opportunity to learn, adapt, and become stronger. So, I encourage all our listeners to view failure as a stepping stone rather than a barrier.
And we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. If you have your own stories or tips on how you deal with failure and setbacks, please share them with us. Your experiences can inspire others who might be going through similar challenges.
Thank you for joining us today, and remember that your journey in learning English is ongoing. Keep pushing forward, stay motivated, and embrace the challenges along the way.
Thank you all for listening. We hope you found this podcast helpful and inspiring. Until next time, keep learning English and keep striving for your goals. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Remember, every step you take brings you closer to success.